Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Hello everybody and welcome to the season opener here on Apex Racing TV for the Radical Racing Challenge. We're here for Season 3, there's a lot of changes this year, we got a very interesting schedule and a very interesting year ahead of us. I am your lead commentator tonight, Ron Mullins, and joining me in the virtual booth is JR Gregory, and joining us in the production hauler is Samuli Kumo, as he did for last year and as he will be doing this year. JR, there's been a lot of changes to this car. They've definitely improved it since last year. Last year was not the best car to drive, not the best driving experience, really, especially at this first race of the year where we had about 40 incidents throughout the opening race of the year here at Road America. There's been a lot of changes to this car. I think it'll be a very interesting race. What do you expect tonight?
You know, I think we're going to see a lot of happy drivers. As you already touched on, there was quite a bit of grumbling last season about difficulties keeping the car on the track, keeping the rear end hooked up. And I took her for a spin a little earlier today, and I got to tell you, this car feels fantastic. Anybody out there watching who is on the fence about whether to pick up the Radical and give it a try, I strongly recommend that you do so. It's kind of a return to old school racing. Fat tires, tons of power, tons of downforce, and no ABS or traction control. So mastering the Radical will make you a better driver of any car that you get into.
Definitely. This car is, it's certainly a very challenging one, even with the changes that we've had this year. It's still a very fun one, though. I drove this car throughout this week, getting ready for the season ahead, and I'll tell you, even though it is a bit skittish coming out of the pits for the first lap, you got a bit of tail-happy action, you got a bit of understeer, but it's also it's very fun. It's a very great car to drive, and it leads to some very interesting racing. We saw a lot of interesting racing last year. The racing product certainly got a lot better compared to the first race of the year here at Road America, where it was borderline farcical towards the end of the year, where we had some very great racing action. We had some very interesting battles. That's an interesting interpretation of track limits entering that turn there. But besides that, this car, very fun to drive. It leads to some very interesting racing, and one thing that you're going to hear us, it's basically beating a dead horse. We had to do it last year, and we'll do it this year. The slipstream, when it comes to races with this car, is very crucial. I was doing a bunch of AI races with these cars. I know it obviously doesn't translate with a lot of these very strong competitors we have racing in the series, but On my own, I could hit about 161 miles an hour going down the main straightaway here at Road America. With the draft, I was bordering on about 172. So these cars are going to pick up a ton of speed in the slipstream, and at a track like this that has very long straightaways, it's going to lead to a lot of overtaking. So I think keep an eye on the slipstream effect. Oh, as we see, bit of a tail happy moment there. Coming through Canada Corner, I think it's going to be a very interesting and very fun race tonight.
Yeah, 100%. And that's one of the kind of challenging things about driving here at Road America and Elkhart Lake. There is always going to be a slipstream on this front straight. There will always be something happening. If you can close on the car ahead of you, you are going to gain. The question then becomes, what are you going to do with it? The front car can cover the inside. You still have an opportunity around the outside, and that's a situation that's going to lead to some great, exciting passes in this one, I believe.
Yeah, I think we're going to have a lot of passing, and look at how close the field is right now. We have Halliburton at the top at a 159.5, which is about a second faster than last year's pole speed, so you can really see that the changes iRacing made to this car have definitely worked their magic so far in between the last race of last season, Season 2 of 2023 at the Northamptonshire, which I was unfortunately unable to call at my high school graduation. The changes to this car have definitely made an effect. As you can see, a lot of these drivers are putting in much quicker times than they were towards the end of last year. I believe Ianni in 11th is he's the first car faster than the pole speed at this race last year. So you can see top 11 drivers in this field are a lot faster. We see Halliburton at the front. We saw some slides from him, but he's definitely gotten a handle of it. He's right. It's definitely close up at the front, only 0.005 of a second between our front row contenders. So it's going to be a very close race, a close nature of this field. It's really been something that's persisted for a lot of the races in this series. We've had a lot of close fields, even when this car was certainly not it wasn't a car that you drove and enjoyed. It was more one that you negotiated with. So I think with the close nature of this field, we're going to have some very interesting racing, as we see the number 11 there going through the final few corners. Oh, and he just disappeared. So that concludes qualifying today. It is Halliburton on pole position for today. It's a pretty close between these two front runners. Halliburton at a 159.572, and then Boots only 0.004 of a second. Wow, I said 5 thousandths. My math was amazing there. Very close between these two. We got McHutchinson, Samoas, who's always been a contender in the series, Vieira in 5th, Frederick in 6th, Hurek, who's also been a very good contender, in 7th, Larson, Busen, Hernandez rounding at your top 10, and then we have Dennis Karakopoulos in 11th position, and then we have Ianni in 12th. He had a very bad start to his last season, and it really started here with a very bad start to that race. We have Ward in 13th. We have Rafael Blanco, who's always been a stalwart in this series, in 14th. Tony Debedin, sorry, I really butchered that pronunciation, my apologies. He is in 15th. We have Rashal in 16th. We have Hetzerman in 17th, and then we have, oh boy, I'm going to really piss off my German relatives with this one, Lindau in 18th, rounding off our grid, I believe. The last 3 starters in this field did not set a qualifying time. For what reason, we do not know. Maybe they just decided to skip out on qualifying. Maybe they're very happy with their chances, or maybe they just completely forgot, probably using the bathroom. So here we go. Ready to get the season underway. We have 4 or 5 lights. The lights are going to go out, and the field is on their way. Looks like an even keel start throughout the field. Not too many incidents. We saw some incidents on the starts last year, but pretty uniform so far, as it's going to be side by side. It looks like Boots is going to take the lead with a commanding move around the outside in turn 1. Halliburton is under pressure from Samoas from the looks of it there, but he manages to hold on to second position. We've got a bunch of drivers going side by side. No incidents so far. That Samoa is dropping back another position. He might be losing one, and we have a car off. That's Ianni. I was talking about the bad start to the race he had last year, and it is deja vu. Another lap 1 incident for Ianni. Really tough break for him. Oh,
Oh,
car
cars
off.
coming together on the Marine.
That was Samoa's from the looks of it. That was Samoa's. I'm not sure who else was involved there, but that was definitely Samoa's off. That is his day done. Definitely suspension damage there. Sorry to budge in there, JR. Sorry, I was about to interrupt you. I was about to pass the lead off to you. And then we saw two cars. I think that was a battle for 5th or 6th. I could be mistaken when I say that, but that was a pretty dramatic incident. We might have to get a replay to see what happened there.
Pretty decent start though across the board. I think I saw a few cars in the 2nd or 3rd row 3 wide into turn 1 without incident. So a real nice start to this race, and hopefully it portends better handling car and happier drivers for the remainder of the season.
Oh yeah, certainly. As we see Blanco having a massive moment there coming out of the carousel. He manages to hold it on. He's gonna have grass on his tires. It's gonna be tight through there, but he manages to keep it on the road going through the kink. I got some grass on my tires going through the kink, and I'll tell you what, I did not escape that corner with clean pants. So really interesting driving there from Blanco to have 4 wheels off and really have nearly a big accident coming out of the carousel and still manage to keep it on track going through the kink. We're going to see a replay of Blanco here. Might have just picked up the understeer there. You can see with the obvious slipstream effect with these cars, it also has the adverse effect of creating a lot of dirty air. That was some crossed over steering. That was some crossed over arms there. That was a very close moment there for Blanco.
Yeah, that was quite a save. And one of the enjoyable things about these cars is that they really do want to help. You get some good cues when they start to get loose like that. And if you're paying attention, the car's there to help you if you can save it, as we saw Blanco do there. That was a nice one.
And that was a very close call from him there. I'm sure he's very thankful the fact that he managed to get away with that. He's still in the top 10. We tend to see him at the front. He usually has a lot of pace in these races. He won a race last year. I believe that was at VIR last season. So he tends to have some pace in these races, but right now struggling from the looks of it, running in the 10th position. But up in the front, we have Boots in the lead, about a 10th of a second. These two are very close there. That was nearly a pass going through that corner. That's not really a corner you see too many overtakes on, so that would have been a very interesting move if those two decide to go side by side through there. Probably wouldn't have been the best decision though. It's definitely not recommended. A lot of these corners, yeah, I mean, you do have overtaking opportunities with the heavy braking zones and long straightaways. As I said, the slipstream is going to play a massive role in these races throughout this season, but you also have some very heavy braking zones. We got one coming into Canada Corner. Maybe Halliburton will try and go for a move. He's a lot farther back, but he's closing up a little bit. Is he going to look forward? No, he does not. So it is Boots holding the lead as we're going to come to the start of lap 3 here.
Seeing the top 4 drive away a little here. All 4 of those drivers within about a second, gap to 5th behind, now about 3.5. And with the slipstream as predominant as it is with these vehicles and on this track, you don't want to miss the train because you'll end up late at the finish.
Oh, definitely. It's we might see a pass here with Halliburton. We're riding on board with him. The slipstream effect is very big. He gives a big lift there. Doesn't want to use up his stuff yet. We've seen tire management can play a very big role in some of these races, especially the races at the front. We've seen some drivers that just use up their stuff way too much early on, and it plays havoc to their races. But he's going to have a good run here. He's going to be very close. I think we could see a move going into the corner. 155 miles an hour. A little bit of a lift from the looks of it. Is he going to look at the move there? He's very close. Not going to go for the move. It's tactical racing that we're seeing from Halliburton now. I think he definitely has the pace to try and pass Boots if he wanted to, but as I was saying, tire management could be a very good thing, and plus, a lot of the times if you're sitting behind a driver, especially towards the end of these races, you can be a sitting duck. I think it's some tactical racing. What do you think, JR?
Absolutely. We saw Halliburton with 2 huge runs just in that lap. He was clearly backing out, not even really considering a move, and he may just be biding his time. If you're in P2 coming onto the straight on the last lap, you can quite easily turn that into a P1 with the draft going up the hill.
There's Lindlau. He wasn't really buying his time there, trying to get the move done on Ward. It looked like he was going to try and go for it around the outside at the carousel. I'm not sure if that'd be the smartest move to pull off, especially when we're still fairly early into this race. We're only on lap 3 after all. That is a very strong run from Lindlau, and he is going to take it, trying to get the pass done on Ward, and he is going to do it. But Ward, she might have the advantage here coming out of Canada Corner. It looked like she had a much better exit, but still, it's a very tricky ask. You can have a great run coming out of Canada Corner, but with these turns, you can't really pull an overtake off through here, especially with how tight this field is. So, had a good run there, might have a great run coming out of here. They still look pretty even keel. We look to the timing board. The gap is closing. I think Ward will try and go for the move here. We're going to see, ooh, very close. She is going to pull out. That's some interesting defending there from Lindlau. And Ward gets a move done, but I think she went in a bit too deep. And Lindlau is going to get the switchback move done. I believe he is going to take that position going into the next corner. Yes, he does, but Ward is still going to have an interesting run as we see a battle for the lead here. Halliburton finally takes advantage of the run he's been having on these straightaways for the past few laps and then takes the lead that he had for a few moments at the start of this race. He lost it at the start from pole position, but he still has a very fast car.
He does indeed, and let's not forget Philip Vandenherk. He last season's, I think, overall P1 at the end of it, and he's now put down a purple lap 1:59.73. So with only 4 laps in the books here, we're already tickling the qualifying speed. So we're going to continue to see Philip put down some heaters, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think the qualifying lap times, I think they are a tiny bit disingenuous, as we might see another battle for the lead here. Boots is going to look forward going into Canada Corner. He's going to have the inside. Some very naughty words have been said in the iRacing voice chat, but we're going to ignore that because you can't hear it. And there's Boots. You couldn't hear the cursing, but you could see the pass there with Boots getting the move done. But I think Halliburton might have another great run coming out of the final corner. But touching on the point that I was going to make before we saw another pass for the lead was the lap times in qualifying might be a little bit disingenuous because these cars definitely get a lot faster as the tires heat up. In my experience, as we're going to see Halliburton go for another move here, I think he might be able to get it done here. They're side by side. Once you pull out of the drift, it's kind of like you're pulling a parachute, but we're going to see him get the move done unless he has a very bad exit, which I think he might have, but I don't think Boots had a good enough exit to try and go for the move here going into the next corner. But I think the qualifying times are a little bit disingenuous because these cars take a little while to get their tires heated up and get all the juices flowing in the car. My experience, first lap coming out of the pits was really, I wouldn't say nightmarish, especially compared to how this car drove last year, but it was still wasn't the most fun experience. I had a lot of mistakes, and then finally, when I got around, as we see Mendez going very deep into the corner there. This car takes a lot of time to get heated up. I was expecting a lot of carnage early on this race just because of how long it takes for these tires to heat up. Last year on lap 1, we definitely saw a lot of carnage. We had 13 incidents in lap 1 alone, so thankfully this race has been a lot cleaner. These drivers, as JR has said, these drivers are very happy with the changes. They're very happy with this race. They have a lot more grip to deal with than last year, and it looks like it's been paying off. We've had a fantastic race so far.
And here's Blanco still digging back from his little adventure off of the carousel. It looks like he is closing in on Bussin here, coming back down the back straight towards Canada. See if he can do anything with the reduced gap he's created here.
I think that was a bit too far. I think a move into Canada Corner might have been a bit of a, definitely would have been a dive bomb there, but I think if he saves up his stuff, if he has a great run coming out of the final corner, I think he will have a fantastic run. He's definitely in the gap to get a slipstream off the back of Boots in there, but I don't think it's going to be enough. I think he's just barely out. I gotta wonder, his car looks not too fast in a straight line. We see this occasionally. We've seen this a lot throughout last year, and we might see it again throughout this year. sometimes with these cars, they can get like a faint amount of aerodynamic damage, and that's like dragging a parachute on the back straightaway. So maybe Blanco, the slipstream he's getting off the back of the car ahead of him, could just be enough to, just keep him in the range. We're going to see him going down the straightaway. Yeah, I mean, he's still keeping all right pace. We're going to see him hit about, looks like 163 miles an hour going into the corner there. And yeah, it's just maybe he picked up some aerodynamic damage. We saw him go faster than Halliburton when we were riding on board with him, but that was mainly just Halliburton lifting quite hard to try and stay behind Boots. What do you think? Do you think Blanco has any pace to contend, maybe grab a top 5, or do you think he might just stay in this position for the rest of the race?
That's a great question. We've been watching him for a better part of a lap here, and it looked like he might be able to get something going, but he has not been able to close down that gap. It's been staying at 0.5. So yeah, maybe you're right. He could have picked up a little underbody damage that we're not able to see. He could be being cautious on the exit. That's critical in these cars, getting a good launch, and that spin might have him a little hesitant on the gas.
Yeah, that could be one thing as well. We saw last year whenever he overheated the tires, he would be screwed. So maybe that's kind of played some mental games with these drivers where after a small little mistake or maybe overheating their tires, Blanco obviously overheated his tires when he had that massive moment coming out of the carousel and pretty much had to slam on the brakes to make sure he didn't hit the wall. I don't think the overheating tires would play too much of an effect considering how long ago that mistake was, but definitely a mental effect. We've seen that happen in all kinds of series. One driver will make one, even like a tiny mistake, and that'll really eat at his mind for the rest of that race. So maybe Blanco had something like that. I think it's really hard to say. We don't have Blanco's perspective on this. I mean, we can obviously see him drive, but we don't really know what he's doing, as we're seeing the top 3 here of Boots, Halliburton, and Hutchinson. They were the front 3 starters and nearly went 3 wide there. I think Halliburton was going to go for a move there on Boots to try and take the lead, but he nearly got overtaken by McHutchinson. McHutchinson might have looked for a move around the outside going into there, but I think at this point in the race, what these drivers might be doing is just staying in a line, getting the slipstream off each other, and then in the final few laps of this race, I think they'll give them hell. So I think it's kind of like watching. It's kind of like watching the Tour de France. I've never really watched it. I'm not really into bike racing personally, well, at least pedal bike racing. I think it might be something like that, where they're just trying to stick with each other, try and tick the laps down, get to the end of this race, and then once they get towards the end, I think they're going to try and pull some very interesting moves on each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep that train going, stick together. Don't slow everybody down by fighting. Make sure that you create a nice gap behind, and then a little gentleman's agreement to start dicing in the last lap or two. Absolutely could be the case.
We're going to see a pass here. Ooh, that is very close there. That was nearly contact. That was a couple inches away from being contact there. That was nearly disastrous between the battle here for 5th, 6th, and 7th here. We're riding on board with Blanco. He is at the towards the tail of this pack. The 2 cars ahead of him, Larson, Norwegian, and Hernandez from, I believe that is Argentina. I am very bad with flags. I apologize if that's incorrect, but I believe that's Argentina. And we're seeing them weaving. You might see this often in the series throughout this season. We're going to see a lot of weaving, trying to break that slipstream. We saw it a bit last year. We saw some very interesting weaving. I'm sure the people that had a problem with weaving in Formula 1 at a race that shall not be mentioned because I don't want to get pilloried. Some people were making a big stink about the weaving there. But in this series, we don't have a problem with it. We're not the race stewards. And we're going to see some racing here. Up at the front here, we got Halliburton going for a move on Boots. That was a very commanding move. He must have had a great run, but I think Boots is... Ooh, he's going to look at it there. That was contact. That was very close between those two. That might have actually been rear to front contact between the 2 drivers that have been running up at the front all day. They have led all the laps between them. They've really been... They've definitely been in their own postal code in terms of pace, but obviously you have McHutchinson there. I gotta wonder, does McHutchinson have the pace to contend with these 2? Is he just saving up his stuff, trying to be like a low-hanging fruit for these 2 drivers ahead of him, trying to play with their mind a little bit, being like, okay, well, I'm just here, I don't really have the pace, and then just sneak attack them on the final laps.
Boy, I'll tell you, I would like to be in McCutchenson's seat right now. I think he is looking pretty. 8 laps in the bag with 4 to remain. As long as he can hang with these guys, sit back, watch them dice back and forth, wait for a mistake, and let the race come to him. And if he doesn't do anything, he's sitting in a podium position right now. So he's in the catbird seat from where I'm sitting.
Definitely, he's got the biggest slipstream. He's gotten the slipstream off of these 2 drivers, and with the way they've been racing and how hard they're probably going to be racing in the final few laps of this race. If those 2 come together, Hutchinson is definitely in the catbird seat to steal a victory to kick this season off. Right now, it is Halliburton in the lead. We got Boots in second, McCutcheon in third, and I apologize for cutting you off there, JR.
Oh, I was just watching that gap on McCutcheon. He took, speaking of the draft, he certainly benefited on that run up the straight. He took about 3/10 out, and as you can see there on the screen, he is right in the thick of it, and right on the back of Boots, who has to not only plan his moves ahead, but he's got to drive in his mirrors to some extent with McCutcheon having closed him down.
We're going to see some mirror driving here. We're seeing some battling here once again for 5th. That's Hernandez. He went in a little bit deep there, but he still managed to get the move done. That was a very commanding move there. And the inside of Larson there. It's a nice little pack we got here. Packs of 3, I guess, rule of 3 for comedy's sakes throughout this race. But it's been a very interesting race, certainly less comedic than last year. That was kind of funny. I remember me and my co-commentator Aaron, who just wrapped up a beautiful job with the F3 broadcast that was preceding this. We were laughing in the booth last year with how many cars were crashing. We had like 40 crashes throughout the day. I said earlier we had 13 crashes on lap 1 period. It was very farcical, but this race has been very entertaining and not in the comedic way. So right now, that's might be the closest battle on track. It is getting a lot closer up at the front. There's Larson looking for a move down the inside of Hernandez, but up at the front, I believe it was very close between McCutcheon and Boots towards the end of last lap, like 20 seconds ago. I think there was only a 10th between them, so they might have gone side by side. Now they're coming through the final corners. Yes, I was coming through the final corners. My instinct was correct. These 2 might be going side by side through the first corners here. I think Boots has a fantastic run on Halliburton here. He might look for the move there. No, he is going to stick behind Halliburton there. He might look for the move later on in this lap. Obviously, these drivers, we only have 3 laps left here, so I think these drivers are going to get their elbows out, and I think they're going to try and battle here.
Oh my goodness, that fight for P5 is getting quite tasty. Blanco's still kind of in the same catbird seat as we talked about McCutcheon, hanging behind these 2 guys, dicing back and forth and waiting for his opportunity. He definitely has Larson driving in his mirrors.
Yeah, it's a nice battle we got here. And I said last lap that it was a rule of 3s for comedic sake. Then we got a rule of 4 for action sakes. That is very close there. That was nearly contact. Blanco, he went for the move there. That was a bit last minute. He felt a bit opportunistic there. Went for the move. Well, tried to look at the move on Larson going into that corner. And that was very close to contact. That was very close to the grass there for Hernandez. Might have been a couple lawn clippings that are a bit sad now, might have gone chopped off by the other giant splitters on the front of these radicals, but this is a very interesting battle to watch. We got battles to watch up and down the field. The gap between Boots and McCutcheon has spread out a little bit. McCutcheon is about a second behind of Boots, so I think that gap, yeah, you can see that might have been a second between McCutcheon and Halliburton. I apologize for that, but McCutcheon, I think he's maybe just dropping back a little bit. This could be because of pace, or this could be a strategic move. Maybe he's trying to get some clean air on his front wing. Oh, this is very close here. Might be 4 cars here. There's contact. Goodness. There is contact there between Blanco and Hernandez. That was, I hate to say it, I think that was a bit of a move there from Blanco from what I saw. I think he went for a gap that was never going to exist, as we're going to see battling here between Halliburton and Boots. Boots is going to grab first place there. This is going to be the battle to watch ever since that battle for 5th Well, we did have a dramatic moment there, but I think that battle might fall apart a little bit. I could be wrong, but Blanco, I think he went for a move that was really always going to disappear. I don't want to taunt anyone or annoy anyone, but that's just how I see it personally. What do you think of that incident, JR?
Well, I'll tell you, we focused on Blanco for a little stretch of time there, and you could see Blanco's patience running thin. He was starting to show his nose, poke around, and in addition to that, he had Bussin pressuring him from behind, which may have made his patience lapse even faster. And here we are at turn 5, a little inside move by Larson, or is that Blanco trying to go around the outside? But this isn't over, and I think Blanco is looking at that lap counter ticking down. He wants to finish this race P5.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, after the start he had, I mean, we were saying earlier, does he have the pace? Is he just kind of like saving up his stuff? It looks like he was very obviously saving up his stuff towards the middle section of this race, because he is showing a big turn of pace. This is going to be a battle to watch for the final lap and a quarter, but the battle up front looks like it's heating up quite a lot. That's Halliburton and Boots. That is very close between them. Halliburton got ahead there from the looks of it, or went side by side into Canada corner. That is very close. That was nearly contact there. These two are going to be battling, and now Mick Hutchinson is back in this fight. He is, as you said earlier, he might be in the catbird seat here. He's going to have a great slipstream on these two. Maybe Mick Hutchinson just waits for these drivers to crash. Maybe he goes for a move into Canada corner. We're going to get a replay of the Blanco incident there. Certainly keep our ears open for any sort of passer incident involving the front three, but there's contact there between Larson and Hernandez, and then Blanco, yeah, I think that was a strange one. I think Hernandez definitely chopped across Blanco, but I think Blanco definitely had the time to back Avid as well. But they were side by side, so I guess just hard racing there. But certainly unfortunate incident with those three. That was nearly an unfortunate incident for Halliburton. It looked like he nearly lost it there, but it looks like Boots is going to lose the lead to Halliburton. He is going to be very close. And it looks like Mick Hutchinson might follow him going around the outside. They're both going to be very late on the brakes here. They're going to go side by side. This battle is for the lead. They're nearly going 3 wide there under the bridge over the hill. These two are going to continue going side by side. These three all want to win this race, and it is going to be elbows out. You don't want to race clean. You want to race for the win. This is going to be very close here.
5, 6, 7, and 8 side by side. And as I said, here comes Mick Hutchinson. Thanks for fighting and trading paint for me and slowing yourselves down. He almost took advantage of that little tussle in turn 8. Wow, this is outstanding.
Yeah, this is fantastic racing here. Mick Hutchinson, I think he's going to have a very bad run coming out of the kink. He was way too close there, had basically no air on his front wing. But Halliburton did. He got a good run, but I think Boots is going to have the slipstream here. He might go for a move here. They're both equal on the brakes. They're all equal on the brakes for the most part. Hutchinson closed up a little bit, but unless there is a absolute miracle for Boots and absolute commiserations, a total disaster for Halliburton, it looks like they're going to finish as they are. Halliburton, he's been in the lead often. He's really shared the laps led throughout this race with Boots, and Halliburton is going to convert the pole position into a win to kick this season off. Halliburton wins the season opener here on Apex Racing TV for the Radical Racing Challenge at Road America.
Wow, and meanwhile, Blanco, wish granted, P5, here he comes. Well done. Great recovery drive by Blanco there.
Yeah, that was definitely a good performance from him. You gotta feel bad for Hernandez, who just barely squeaks into the top 10 there. It looked like maybe it was a surefire top 5. Well, definitely a surefire top 5. He was very close with Larson. I believe he was ahead of Larson throughout a majority of this race. But just a small little incident there cost him big time. So, short break for Hernandez. You gotta feel good for Blanco, regardless of how you feel about that incident. That was definitely a very good recovery drive after that very scary incident, at least for him, as we see Rashal, who crossed the line to finish 16th. Yeah, the last of the finishers today. He was very far behind the rest of the pack. Ayani, we saw him involved in the lap 1 incident there. It looks like he is going to be the last of the finishers. And Felix Samoas, who throughout most of last season was my pick to win a lot of the races. He's always shown a lot of pace here. He didn't have the best qualifying in the world and certainly didn't have the best race as he got involved in that incident very early on. So very tough break for him. It looks like he is going to be the only DNF of this race. Falling out of the race only 3 corners in where he had that hip check incident early on. Very tough break for him, so hopefully we'll see him rebound in the upcoming races. He usually watches these races back. He has always expressed support for what we do on Apex Racing TV, so we appreciate him, we appreciate his support, and we appreciate all of you watching. We're going to see Ayani cross the line here to finish 17th. I think he was on the lead lap. I could be mistaken there. Yes, he was on the lead lap. Just barely. Interesting race that we had today. We're going to get the results here, and it is Kane Halliburton from Jamaica taking the victory here at the season opener here on Apex Racing TV. Jules Boots, who was, I think he led the most amount of laps throughout this day. He was always a contender and very close to taking the victory. If Halliburton had a bad exit coming out of that final corner, that might have been his win to take. Hutchinson, he was always running P3. I think that bad run coming through the kink on the last lap really sealed his fate, and you can't really say it's a bad fate. He still finished P3, but I think only half a second behind. He might be kicking himself a little bit after this race. We got Philip Herc, who ran a pretty quiet race, all things considered. Had an all-right qualifying, had an all-right race, and brings it home in P4. Rafael Blanco definitely didn't have a quiet race. He had some incidents early on, had that really big moment coming out of the carousel, and brings it home in a very respectable P5. Great recovery from him. Andres Frederick in 6th, Lucas Vieira in 7th. Mike Boosin, who we saw occasionally throughout this race, finishes in 8th. Larson, who we saw in that very heated battle with Hernandez for 5th. Both of those drivers dropped off towards the end, so tough breaks for those drivers. Lindau, we saw him battling with Ward. Lindau finishes 11th. We saw a little bit of Karakopoulos in 12th. He ran a pretty quiet race. Hesterman ran a very quiet race. He's in 14th. I completely skipped Tony Dibben in 13th, and we saw a little bit of Matrina Ward, who had a nice battle with Lindau. She finishes in 15th. We have Rashal in 16th, as I said, the last of the drivers really in the main pack. We had Ayani, the last of the finishers, and Samoas, who was involved in that lap 1 incident, is classed in 18th after not even completing a lap. So, very interesting race. What do you think, JR?
Oh, I think it was fantastic. It absolutely lived up to expectations. The changes and tweaks made to the car leading into Season 3 here have shown dividends. As you said, at the same track, the same car at the beginning of last season was a yard sale of busted radical parts all over the track. And today, in contrast, 17 cars finish on the lead lap. We saw some great side-by-side racing, and I'll tell you, if tire management is going to be a thing with these cars this season, and we're going to keep an eye on this as the season goes, we might have seen a lesson in tire management from Blanco. He kind of hung around, took it easy. We were doubting his pace, and at the end, he turned up the wick and jumped about 3 cars to come in P5.
Yeah, that was that was a very good drive from him. Very smart drive, even with a few incidents he had. And we're going to get some interviews here to wrap off tonight's broadcast. We're going to get interviews from Hutchinson, who finished 3rd, and we are going to get an interview with your race winner, Kane Halliburton. Both of these drivers drove fantastic throughout this race, and I think it is going to be it's going to be nice to hear from these drivers. So let's bring some of these drivers in. I certainly have a lot of questions. I'm sure you, JR, have some questions for these drivers as well. Let's bring them in. So first up, we have your winner tonight. We have Kane Halliburton, who drove a pretty interesting drive. It certainly wasn't easy to bring the victory home today. You were certainly tailing Boots probably more than you want to throughout most of this race. You probably saw more of his back end than you wanted. So how was the race from your end?
It was a good race. I think once we pulled away, I think it was a 4-car breakaway. It was more down to just racecraft and, tactics, setting up the last lap, trying out different attacking and defending maneuvers. So I wasn't really too worried during the race. That last lap was fun, and so no wrecking for sure though.
I'm sure you definitely had a lot of fun throughout this race. I'm sure battling throughout this race was definitely a lot more fun than just having a pull-away victory from the pole. So we saw you grab the pole, but we also saw some faster times throughout this race. So I was pointing out earlier in the broadcast how these cars aren't really too great on very cold tires. So can you detail how it was in qualifying, just running on cold tires and car being very skittish out of the pits?
Yeah, I think the first maybe lap and a half, the car, was it's easy to get it sideways, but keeping that in mind, knowing the second lap is the important one, there's no need to really push that hard, take any risks. So as long as you play it smart, not really a problem. Cold tires.
Alrighty, and I think I'll pass the final question for you off to my co-commentator, JR Gregory. Take it away, JR.
Hey, Kane, great drive today. You guys put on a great show. You and Boots saw some great side-by-side action, some fast, respectful racing. Let me ask you about the update to the Radical. There was quite a bit of grumbling in Season 2 about handling issues and complaints about inability to keep the car on the track. What is your perspective in the changes that we've seen in the car from last season? How's it feel to you out there?
To be honest, I didn't even drive the car last season, because it wasn't very good. I didn't even waste my time on it.
Yeah,
but
that's definitely a good decision. That was
yeah.
that was a very great decision from your end.
Yeah, but this season they improved it a lot. They built upon the mistakes and all of the good things they done when the car was first released. So I'm happy with it. I think 99% of people are happy with it, and hopefully the popularity keeps growing up until we get to the point where it was a few seasons ago. Have more races, bigger SOFs. But yeah.
Yeah, I hope so too. This way to kick the year off, we had a lot more participation than we had throughout all of last year, pretty much combined for the most part. So having 2 splits was nice. Having a top split with few drivers that were really pushing it quite a lot, but also being able to keep it on the road and not have many incidents. We really didn't have any incidents, which is a nice change of pace compared to last season when we had a lot of incidents. Anyone you want to shout at?
Yeah, shout out to Erin Barber. I know he's watching.
There you go. Aaron Barber, if you're watching this, he thanks you. So, great driving out there, man. You drove fantastic, and hopefully we can see you throughout the rest of this year. Great driving, man.
For sure. Thank you.
That was your race winner tonight, Kane Halliburton. That was a very composed drive from him. I'm sure he definitely had a lot of fun with the battling we saw throughout the entirety of that race with Boots. So, really interesting race that we had. Lots of interesting moves, lots of interesting overtakes, and we saw a couple incidents here and there, but it wasn't through the car just driving like complete crap like we saw last year. And as I said in the interview with Kane, it was a nice change of pace to not have 40 incidents throughout this race and just non-stop crashing. So it was very great and a very good change of pace. So, fantastic race. Final thoughts, JR? What do you think?
Well, I think I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. You can sense the enthusiasm from the winner Halliburton there. Happy with the car. Happy that iRacing has made a fun car more fun, and I think we're going to have a great season. And encourage everybody. Again, if you're on the fence about the car, go out, pick it up, take it for a spin. You won't be sorry. And definitely join us here next Friday for the next round. This is going to be a fantastic Season 3.
Oh yeah, we need to offer some kind of incentive, like a bag of potato chips or something to these drivers to get more participation. We had more participation tonight, which is always great, but I think towards the end of the year, with the way this car is driving and the way these drivers are very happy with the way this car is driving this season, I think we're going to see a lot more participation as the season moves on. So that, I believe, is going to do it for this week's broadcast. I hope you all enjoyed this race as much as me and JR did. So that's going to do it tonight. For me, Ron Mullins, the lead commentator, even though I probably shouldn't be doing this, JR Gregory joining me in the virtual commentary booth, and Samuli Kumo in the production booth doing a fantastic job as he usually does. So thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you next Friday. Bye-bye.